Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I'm your host. Alright, so it's the first proper episode of January, and, I can't wait to start this new year off with you all. There's not much to talk about in terms of news, so we're going to just bypass that a little bit, and just going to go into a general note about what I'm going to review today. And it's a little note on DC's Future State, which has already begun. Now, I'm not going to be reading anything from Future State. I'm not going to. And I will not for the foreseeable future. Maybe sometime far off from now, I might read it on a whim. There's a good enough chance of that. Because while I'm also saying all this, it is not because that Future State is something repulsive or anything. Or that I think the story is going to be bad or will all be bad. That's not it at all. It's just that I have zero care or interest in any of it. It's that it's this 2-month or so stopgap, which we've already had so many of. It's that it's yet another meaningless possible future meandering incoherent mess of ideas. Again, it's that even if ideas and concepts from this get folded into the status quo, it'll be in the context of that status quo, and not within this radically different context that they're even being introduced in. What's the point? I have no doubt that some will enjoy most or maybe all of the stories within this banner, and maybe if I go back, I will too, and when I read them. But other than that, I'm just going to live and let live. I'd be forcing myself to trudge through something I have no enthusiasm for otherwise. And that doesn't seem like a worthwhile effort. But overall, kudos to them, and fingers crossed for everybody. And also, same goes for death metal and its ending, because fuck that, I don't give a shit. Anyway, let's get caught up in some X-Men. Starting off with Hellions number 7, which was okay. It's a bit tedious, almost as tedious as the first arc was. I thought the first issue back last month was actually pretty good, but it was still running off the fumes of the peaks this series reached during the X of Swords event. That said, the fumes are rapidly running out. It's just not that interesting seeing these characters running around on missions. The ridiculous interpersonal dynamic stuff between the characters is a selling point. So seeing that broken up with nonsense in, a dreary, mediocre adventure story just feels dull and stalling. The moments where there's room to breathe and where they're dealing with the afterglow of the mission succeeding are probably the best parts of this issue. And for that same obvious reason, because, the characters get to sort of go back and forth, kind of butt heads and actually have dynamics with each other. That keeps it from being as bad as the series usually was at its start, but only a little. I hope that they can bring it back up from the brink because, like always, this series still has some serious potential. And we just saw it reach that. So fingers crossed that it might happen again. Overall, 1 thumb middle, 1 thumb up. Next up, we have X Factor number 6. I'm not really interested in where this new arc is heading. It's almost the exact opposite situation as Hellions, where I'd rather focus on the larger plot because the dynamics of the cast don't really excite me all that much. The series is still very cute and comfy at points, but doesn't really make it stand out all that well. And it's basically the entire focus. It's like a sitcom, and it's purposely built like that kind of thing. A really soft, filtered sitcom. Honestly though, I'm willing to stick by it because we're definitely not done with Mojo World, and it had some really ingenious ideas and takes on a concept that I would love to see pop up again. And it has enough seeds for that I'm sure we're going to see it come around again in the future. It's like the big myth arc, the big backbone of the series. And you know what? That's enough for me. That is enough for me. Overall, 2 thumbs middle. And lastly, we have X-Men number 16, which is just your general, all-purpose, snarky Hickman fun. Nothing more and nothing less. I mean, it's good to see that Hickman still has a sense of humor about things, but when doesn't he? So it's pretty par for the course for him, which makes it an exceedingly standard and usual toned issue. Overall, 2 thumbs middle. I'm glad that this series is at least trying to develop past its original anthology roots, where it's going to be like stories building out the universe of X-Men, and we may actually start seeing like a full proper ongoing about a team, which it seems to be setting up. Because all that other background stuff is kind of needless now that we've passed the dawn of X and we're heading forward into a new phase of this mega run. So, fingers crossed. And lastly, we can head on to what I watched this week, and it's a very special one because we have The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season 4, which is finally the last season of this godforsaken show. And I would be doing a disservice to myself and everyone else if I didn't try and make it through this one last time and reveal all the things that it got wrong. And that'll be easy, because the same exact stuff it's gotten wrong every season it's had. It's got really backwards moralizing, complete dull and dragged out teen soap melodrama, hypocritical and unlikable emotional cores and themes, and basically everything else you can think of to make a show feel as unbearable as possible. I mean, this is the show where supposed heroes decide not to put their faith in God, despite God existing, despite the devil existing, despite heaven and hell existing, also selling their souls to the devil, and torturing angels, and just sort of bypassing and sort of like rationalizing the killing of kids. But oh no, the show still tries to sell the idea that witches are just a metaphor for disenfranchised and empowered women throughout history. And like, fuck off. That doesn't work when you're actually literally showing witches doing all this evil stuff. That metaphor breaks down. You're not really saying anything. You're just being stupid. And that's just the tip of the iceberg with the usual backhanded bullshit that this show has always been about. And it's always carrying forward throughout this season. So it's, business as usual. But is there anything that this season does differently than the others and how bad it is? And the answer is yes. This season takes a show and it makes it episodic. Like the rest of the series has usually been a bad teen soap. So the drama is at the forefront and everything keeps the momentum from the dramatic standpoint. Things flow in. It feels very serialized usually. This season, for whatever insane reason, however, decides to introduce a round of mini bosses that show up each episode, and the characters confront one after the other, and it's a very strict formula, and it's tedious and meandering as all fuck. And not only does it downplay the strengths of the show, whatever they might be to the fanboys and fangirls and whoever, the sappy love triangle bullshit that they crave, but it also highlights how very little amount of actual substance there even is in a show like this on a good day. Because when you're too focused on sort of hitting every single thing about like the villain of the week and not actually, focusing on the characters that people might be invested in, I can't imagine how they could be, but some people might be, and they're just really being downplayed in service of, oh, we got to figure out about this week's monster and then defeat it at the end of the week. That's not what people watch the show for. I don't know why they watch the show for, but ostensibly it's for the brilliant characters and how engaging their romantic relationships are and that kind of stuff. But you really get almost nothing about that this season. So you're really stuck watching episodes of the same tepid, bland bullshit. No variety, no inkling of creativity. You might as well be watching a very dry 80s cartoon. Not even a fun one. And you know what? That's about it. Other than, well, the ending, I guess. Because this show does have an ending. This season has an ending. Which caught me off guard because of how showrunner Aguirre Sacasa whined online about how they plan for like 2 more seasons. Which, I'm going to call bullshit on that. Because this has an ending. Like a conclusive one. Sabrina dies and goes to heaven. With her soulmate who committed suicide. But let's sidestep that. Like, that's pretty much as final as you can get. And believe me, I have a huge bone to pick with it anyway. Since Sabrina 100% definitely deserved to go to hell for all of the immense sins she's been doing in the show. But whatever, it's still a conclusive ending. She defeats the Elder Gods and saves the universe, and it's all very neat and tidy. To act like your big myth arc was ruined is hilarious and kind of pathetic, because hey, you have a note to end on that's way more than a lot of other Netflix shows can say, so be relieved about that. Other than that, the only other thing I want to mention is that there's an episode that's a very bad homage to the original 90s Sabrina sitcom, and we finally have a talking Salem, but no Nick Bakay returning, which is god-awful because of how they've written all of this talking Salem's dialogue to sound like Bakay's line readings, and it's just off-putting and awkward and a huge fumble all around. So overall, 3 out of 10, 2 thumbs down, and good riddance to this god-awful show. Anyway, that's it for this week. I just want to say thank you out to who's ever listened, who continues listening. That means so much to me. I can't wait to, move forward in this year and, see what comes out, see what comes of all this, and I'm glad to have you guys around. So I want to give a shout out to the co-host for this show at DOTEMCE. Please check them out. They really deserve all the likes and follows that you can give them. They're amazing. And I want to say have a great week, and see you next time.